for these words. Amen. Okay, it says in verse 21 of chapter 35 of Shemos, every man whose heart inspired him came, and every one whose spirit motivated him brought the portion of Hashem for the work of the tent of meeting, for all its labor, and for the sacred vestments. Now turn to 37, verse 1. 37, verse 1. This text here is pretty straightforward and an interesting text that is going to sort of summarize what our shiur is about today before we start the sort of in-depth, hard-charging study like we normally do in the class. It says, Bezalel made the ark of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits in height, 1.5 cubits in width, and 1.5 cubits in height. He covered it with pure gold, and within and without he made it for a gold crown all around. The first words are important to this text. Bezalel made the ark. Bezalel made the ark. I want to talk to you for a few moments about this subject. You get what you pay for. You get what you pay for. Why did we discuss in last week's class Shabbat is so connected to the temple, to the tabernacle? Why? Because the two are equal mitzvah, right? They're two powerful mitzvahs for you to do. But at the same time, as the people were so excited about their investment into the temple, that he didn't want the people to be so consumed with the physical temple and forget about the true spiritual connection that comes from Shabbos, right? With that being said, while the parshiot of Terumah and Tetzuvah recount Hashem's commandment to build the Mishkan, the parshiots of Vayechel and Pekudi describe the actual construction of the Mishkan. Regarding the aspect of the Mishkan, the Torah simply writes this in 37:1, and he made. And he made. When I read this today, these quotes from Rav Wobi's Chumash, it did something to my heart. It elevated it, and it made me so excited to realize this Torah can be my Torah. This Torah can be my Torah. It says, Bezalel made the Aron, the altar. Rashi explains that because Bezalel invested great effort in building the Aron, quote, it was called by his name. We find several of these ideas existing within pre-existing texts from Bereshit 34:25. Shimon and Levi were described as Dinah's brothers. Why? Because they protected Dinah, right? They went out and fought for her honor. It says that Miriam is referred to as Moshe's sister. These words are chosen very carefully. They're not just random ways of saying things. Found in Bereshit 15:20, because she was the Moser of Moser Nefesh for Moshe when he was in the Nile. While he was in the Nile, she was his protector. And so it was Moshe's sister. It says, remember the Torah of Moshe, my servant, found in Malachi, or Malachi, as they would say in English, 3:22, refers to the fact that the Torah belonged to Moshe. Now hold on a second. All of these things, who does it belong to? The Aaron belonged to, his name was on the Aaron, and we see this sort of connection to an individual, to something else. But here it says the Moshe, because of that he was the Moser Nefesh, the Torah was his. Now we might add that while the Torah specifically referred to belonging to Moshe, the Chazal tells us that the Torah becomes the personal acquisition of anyone who expends effort and toils in study. Think about this for a second. It's not just Moshe's Torah. It can be our Torah. Now, God forbid that we would ever think that I have a Torah or you have a Torah. But in reality, what the Chazal is saying, no, you do have a Torah, and there is a way that you get it. Not everybody has a Devar. Not everybody has a word, a Torah. We're going to find out in a moment what that meant. Rava said, initially the Torah is ascribed to Hashem. It says, this is the Torah of Hashem, right? It says, and eventually it is ascribed to him. Interesting, in the Avodah Zarah 19a, Rashi explains that the him, in this case, when it says eventually it is ascribed to him, is talking about the student who's so totally consumed with the study of Torah, the acquisition is not external, but internal, changes the very fiber and core of their person. Everyone in this room we've talked to, and we've had these one-on-one discussions, we've all talked about the time that even though we have been on a spiritual journey from maybe our whole life, and we went from one spiritual, religious construct to another, the day that you open the Torah up and begin to study it, it was more than just studying words. Pretty soon you found out something's changed about me. Something's different. What's different? My knowledge is different. My wisdom is different. The way I communicate is different. And we find out that it does do and produce change. Nevertheless, we know that you can learn Torah, you can daven, perform mitzvahs without ever having profound effect in your life. Now that's hard to believe, but it's very true. You can do all these great mitzvah and something not change in the core of who you are. If we want Torah and mitzvahs to truly be ours, if we want to be able to stand up and say, the Torah of Moshe is now my Torah, it has to come because of a connection to Hashem that we've put effort into. It's a connection to Hashem that has been transformative. Something has changed inside of me. This might translate into a few minutes of extra study Torah. I mean, we could think of all kinds of things. Instead of listening to one lecture, spend a whole day wherever you have free time listening to lectures on Musar, etc. But even listening to lectures is not as powerful as intentionally focusing on the character traits that need to be transformed. The real character traits, the real things that only you know about. Now, my wife and I, and all the years of our living, have went through the experience, and we love a sale. We like to go to a dollar store and, help me here, honey, thrift store, Goodwill. We love all these places, right? And in most cases, we get some pretty good deals. But there are other cases you do get what you pay for. If you try to shortcut, for example, on a computer, when you know that you need a computer to do a certain job, I'm telling you, you're going to pay the price. How many times have we needed to upgrade a computer like, well, we'll just get this little thingamajig. It's only $50, right? And a year down the road, you're having to buy another $50 one because that one didn't work. You do get what you pay for. The issue is that most people that we know of that, quote, are religious, they don't want to invest any more time than they have to, right? They're the type of person that wants to talk about having a great relation and connectionship with Hashem, but they don't commit to the actions that bring them close to Hashem. It's like talking all day long about, I just would like to have a great deal. We're looking for another car right now, a used car. My wife's little Betsy finally gave up the ghost. It was like talking to a thoracic surgeon or mechanic. He was like very solemn. I tried everything I could. All right? And he did. He worked 3 days on it, and thank God he only charged us for the little parts that he had to put on it. But he said, I tried our best. But we're talking about buying a new car. And this whole debate, you do get what you pay for. I don't want to buy a brand new one, but at the same time, you can buy a clunker and get a good deal, right? And it work for years on end, or you can buy one and it be a mess. How do you know what you're getting into? By getting to know the product you're getting ready to buy. You cannot know the transformation that's going to take place in your life by dancing around religious stuff. You have to dive into the study of Torah and ask yourself, what needs to change in me that will become more like the holiness of the Creator? You see, we could go down through a whole list of things that can cause you or help you spend more time studying the Talmud, the Mishnah, studying just simple Torah text, or maybe issues of the heart, the what's the book series? Ira and I were just talking about this week. The Way of the Heart. Help me here. Duties of the Heart. Fantastic book. A 2-set book. Incredible. If you read that, you will realize, oh my goodness, and Ira and I were talking about it. He talks about in the introduction, he says, a person committing to the mitzvahs of the limbs. Now, when we say mitzvahs of the limbs, what comes to mind? Your actions. All right? External mitzvahs. He said you do the mitzvahs of the limbs, and you can completely ignore the mitzvahs of the heart. What are the mitzvahs of the heart? The mitzvahs of the heart are the hidden things that no one else knows about. The mitzvahs of the heart is how do you control your lust, or how do you control your anger, or how can you control a lying tongue. All of these things are deep down inside that the only way they can be transformed is to spend time with Hashem and talking to Him and letting Him know, you know what, I'm a hypocrite. I need you to change me. I need you to help me to change me. Only you can do it, because if it was left up to me, I won't do it. Being honest with Him. It's an incredible way. With that being said, I will repeat the phrase, you get what you pay for. Similarly, as I put on Facebook today, the spiritual reward in this world is directly proportionate to the effort expended in the performance of Hashem's will. So what do you want? What are you looking for? And what can we do to transform ourselves is to begin to bring in the product, the knowledge of God. It's an amazing transformation. All of us are a testament to this, and I want to share it to those people watching. You can have a transformative life, but you've got to give yourself to the way of God, to the Derech Hashem. Find out what God's way is and begin to walk in it. I love the psalmist David and how honest he is with Hashem. He says, your Torah is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. We recognize that God's Torah is the only illumination that we have. And if we will study it, you don't even have to know it all, do you? No. You just have to show the eagerness to study the Torah. You do that, and I can guarantee you will get exactly what you put into it. That concludes this shiur. Thank you so much for listening, and the class will continue on in its in-depth study of the parashah. Thank you.